Hello and welcome. My name's Marie and today's video is a continuation of the Learn to Knit or Knit With Me series, and I am going to be talking, we are going to knit together, if you want to join me, the No Frills Sweater by PetiteKnit. Now I've got the iPad here because I've got information on. It's a paid for pattern, so if you do want to join along, you will need to buy the pattern and download it. So you can either use it on your device as I do, or you can print it out to follow along. The No Frills Sweater is a great starter sweater. If you have done the scarf and the hat follow along with me that I've have on my channel, they are good introductions to knitting in the round, and that was the reason for me doing those videos, as a lot of modern patterns are done in the round. Now it's a raglan construction sweater with long sleeves and rib finishings. And I've just moved my hair out the way so that I can show you. This is a Tulsa tee by Rebecca Clow that I am wearing. And this is a raglan t-shirt that I've knit. And I'll just hold my arms up and I hope you can see, but you may not be able to see. But what happens is you cast on at the neckline, you do whatever you're doing for your start, which on this and on the No Frills is a rib, which we'll get into all those details in a minute in the pattern. So you do your neckband and then you work increases. And the increased rate depends on the pattern and on the size that you are doing. And then we join under the arms and then we knit round and in the round down to the end of the body. And then you pick up for the sleeves and knit them the length that you want them. And that's how most raglan sweaters are knit. Some are knit bottom up, and there is lots of different ways to do a raglan, but that is in most basic patterns. I've wanted to knit the No Frills sweater for quite some time. I bought the pattern when I got back into knitting, and I bought the yarn, and then I ended up doing other projects as you do. So I thought this would be an ideal time to knit it and to do these follow along videos. So we've talked about the raglan construction. Now the yarn that's used in the pattern, that's the first thing, because I'm going to talk through what you need for the pattern. So once you've downloaded the pattern, on the first page it does give you information about what you need and the information you need for the pattern. And learning to read a pattern is a very good skill to master, and you do get better at that the more you knit. But on the first page, generally on most patterns, it gives you a rundown of what you need. It'll tell you the needle sizes, it will tell you the type of yarn, it will tell you any notions you need generally, and it will talk about the size and the ease that you require in the that you want in the pattern. So for the yarn in this pattern, they have used a fingering weight yarn, and they've used a mohair fluff. Now and a lot of patterns do use that combination, but I'm not going to be doing that, because the alternative to that is to use one strand and use a DK weight, which is what I'm preferring to do on this occasion. I find that a lot of fluffs do irritate me and I find them a little bit itchy. So I'm going to be using a budget friendly yarn, and it's Drops Lima in a purple mix, which is the colour number 4434. Now, if you are in the UK, Drops Lima can be purchased a few pounds a ball. I can't remember the exact price, but it's a very budget friendly yarn. And you can get it, from Wool Warehouse in the UK. If you need, on the pattern, it will tell you how many balls of yarn you need for your size. And There isn't a massive size range, and like I say, I did actually buy this pattern a few years ago, so she may have updated it since then, because I know PetiteKnit has been going back and updating a lot of her patterns to include a wider size range. But you will need to refer to the pattern. When you're knitting a pattern, you have to decide which size you want to make in the pattern for a top or sweater. You need to measure your bust circumference at the fullest point. Mine is 37. Then the pattern will say how much ease, and all that means is recommended, and you can decide on your preferences what you want to do, or go with what it says in the pattern. The amount of ease relates to how fitted or how loose you want the garment. So if I did a top that was 37 inches measurement at the bust circumference, then I would end up with a very fitted top. If I knit one that was, say, 35 inches, that would be negative ease, and therefore it would be very skin tight. And if I did one that was, say, 44 inches, that would have 7 inches of positive ease. Now this pattern recommends 6 inches of positive ease, and looking at this, there won't necessarily be a size that matches exactly with the ease, but as you knit more garments you will realize what sort of ease that you like. Now on here it has 39.25 bust circumference, which would be a little bit snug for me, although it would still fit me, but it's not as recommended. There's 41, which would give me 4 inches of positive ease, and then there's a 42.5, which is probably the size that I will go for. So in the copy of the pattern that I've got, and like I say, it may be different in your pattern if you're buying it now, I'm probably going to go for the 3rd size, and in a lot of patterns I generally am the 3rd or 4th size. And yes, so mine should end up at 42.5 inches at the bust, which will be plenty roomy and a nice relaxed fit for this sweater. Now when you are considering your size, you need to think about your gauge, and what gauge is just the number of stitches that you are knitting in every inch, and dependent on the yarn you're using and the needle size you use, that will vary from project to project. In this pattern, the gauge that is recommended is 21 stitches over 4 inches or 10 centimeters. So you need to do a swatch that is bigger than that. So I normally say you need to do it about 12 by 12 centimeters. And then you can measure more accurately the 10 by 10 gauge. You could, if you did a smaller swatch, it's not likely to be as accurate as doing the 10 by 10, which is recommended. If your gauge is different to the pattern, which is the 21 stitches in 10 centimeters, this will affect the overall outcome and size of the pattern. I am generally a tighter knitter, so I generally have to use a slightly bigger needle size to get the recommended stitch count. So this is our first port of call for this pattern. It is knitting a gauge swatch, and we need our yarn and we need needles. The pattern recommends 3mm, which will be for the finishing, so the collar neckline and the cuffs and the bottom hem on the sweater, and then a 4mm as the main needle, and a 80 or 100 centimetre. Now you can use a fixed circular needle or interchangeables. I use this ChowGoo set, and if you're going to be knitting quite a lot, this is an investment, but it is well worth it to be able to have access to different size cables and different size needles that you just interchange as you need them. So because the pattern is suggesting 3mm and 4mm, I am probably going to do my swatch on a 4.5mm. I would recommend, if you're a new knitter, do your swatch first of all on the size of needles recommended, and then work from there. And the good thing about having this interchangeable set is you might buy the recommended needles for this pattern, the 3 and the 4mm, and then you'll do your swatch and block it and check your gauge and realise that you're not on gauge, and then you have to buy another needle size. If you have an interchangeable set, you just use another needle out of your set, and it is handy in that way. Especially I found for myself, being a tighter knitter, I often have to go up. So yeah. And what else we need, it is saying we need some double pointed needles. Now I don't use double pointed needles, and I'm presuming that is referring to the sleeve, but we will look further down in the pattern. I find double pointed needles very cumbersome to use. So whenever I'm knitting my sleeves, I will do them in a small circumference. So I have got another set of these, but the smaller blue set, and I will use them either 9-inch or 12-inch circular to do my sleeve. I just find that's easier. You can also do it on a magic loop, but with my knitting, I do prefer. But I'll discuss all this when we get to it. And I think that's everything that I wanted to talk to you about. So first port of call is our gauge swatch. And what I will do is I will knit my swatch, and then I will come back and I will tell you how I've gotten on. I'm going to use a 4.5mm as my starting point. Then I am going to block it and pin it, and once it's fully dry, I'll come back and show you, and we will measure that gauge together to see how I have gotten on. And I think that's everything I need to tell you for today. If you have any questions, because there is a lot to take in when you're starting a pattern like this, well, it seems like there's a lot to take in. The main points to take away really are that all we're doing at the moment is a little tiny, swatch 10 by 10 or 12 by 12 to make sure that you've got an accurate gauge that you can measure, and that's just measuring your stitch per inch. You need to make sure you've got the right needles, some stitch markers, which we'll always need for marking the raglan increases, and for our beginning of round marker, which we've talked about before in these videos. Hope you join along, and that you enjoy knitting this sweater with me, and I will see you in the next one for a swatch and gauge check. Well, I'm finally back. You'll just be seeing this clip after the first part of the video telling you what you need for the No Frills Sweater by PetiteKnit. Apologies that this video has not gone up as soon as I would have liked on my channel. But I have done my swatch now, and I have blocked my swatch, so I can't fully remember what I said in the last video. So I am just going to add here the basic details again for the pattern. So it's the PetiteKnit No Frills Sweater, and the gauge for this sweater is 21 stitches by 28 rows, and the needles recommended are a 3 and a 4mm. So for your swatch, for the stockinette, for the body portions, you need to do your swatch on the larger needle size, because the smaller needle is used for the finishing edges, generally rib in this type of pattern. And I've done my swatch, and here it is, nice big swatch as you can see, and I've measured my gauge. Now for my swatch, instead of doing it on a 4mm, I did go up to a 4.5mm needle, because I am generally a tighter knitter. But on checking my gauge on 4.5mm, I got 18.5 stitches and 29 rows. So I think that I am safe to make this on the 4mm, but I will check my gauge at regular intervals while knitting to ensure that I am not too far off gauge, because if you're too far off gauge, then it will affect the outcome of the size. Even one stitch can make quite a difference. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say today. I hope you've done your swatch and you've blocked it. What I haven't done is done a clip of blocking it. I'm going to put a video in the description, a link to one by Nimble Needles that I have watched all about gauge. I just thought it might be an interesting watch for you to give you an idea of what gauge means and how it affects your projects. It might be a bit overwhelming if you're a beginner, but it's definitely worth just listening to the information. Also, especially if you're having gauge issues like I have done in the past, and still do have. And I did block this, so we'll just explain that, and I'll see if I can find a video to link to show you how to block your swatch. So basically you soak this in lukewarm water with a tiny bit of wool wash, and I normally soak for 30 minutes, and then I squeeze out all the excess water, and then I pin it out flat like this with the pins on the board, and let it dry flat. And that just does mean that if you look at the stitches, I hope you can see that, makes them all look quite neat and uniform, and gives you a more accurate I can't say that word, after block gauge, because sometimes fabrics can grow quite a lot. And what might be useful for you as a beginner to check is your gauge pre-block and your gauge after block. But it is the after block gauge that is listed in most patterns, so it is worth doing that. Okay, so just wanted to add in a little clip of the gauge swatch, because I realised when editing this video that I didn't show you this is how I check the gauge. I'm sure I did do it in the Musselburgh video. So I just use this wooden ruler because I find it easiest, and I'll just get in a bit closer so you can see. You're going to be measuring across 4 inches or 10 centimetres, whichever you prefer, and you're looking for, I've not got something that I can point with, but each little stitch is, and you can probably see better there, 2 little V's coming down. And you need to count how many you have in 4 inches or 10 centimetres, and that across ways will be your stitch gauge. And then you do it this way also, and you can do it over 2 inches or 4 depending on how big your it is better to do a bigger swatch so that you can see my 4 inches does fit in. And you just then count again, each little 2 V's coming together to a point in the bottom. So think of the letter V, and that is your stitches. And again, line it up at the top, count all the way down. And what you can do to get a more accurate gauge is so do it up here, over here, down here, and then with the row gauge do it there, do it there, do it there. And like I say, I have linked the video so that you can have a little watch of nimble needles and what he says about gauge. And just be careful not to stretch out the fabric too much when you're blocking it. And yeah, that's everything for this first video. Hope you have enjoyed it. Hope you're going to join in and knit along and knit the No Frills sweater with me. Like I say, you need to get the pattern and everything you need together, and then hopefully next week I will have the first part up on the channel for you. And yeah, then we can cast on and start knitting the collar. See you next time. Bye.